Hi, everyone. Ted Wyman here for the Winnipeg Sun, along with Sun hockey writer Scott Billeck, and we're here to preview the NHL's Free Agent Frenzy Day, which begins Friday. Not so sure that it's going to be a frenzy this year, Scott. There's been a lot of factors that have kind of gotten in the way of that, including because of the pandemic. There's been no interview period for the players. And realistically, because of the pandemic, the NHL salary cap is going to be flat. And we don't know what kind of money GMs are going to be willing to throw around. There's quite a bit of talent available, but I think there's going to be a feeling out period before teams decide what kind of money they're going to start to spend. The Winnipeg Jets general manager Kevin Cheveldayoff has promised to be active in the free agent market. What do you expect from him on Friday and in the days to come?
Yeah, and I do expect some depth moves in free agency. I think that's where they can do, that sort of damage, bolstering on forward and on defense. I'm not sure you're going to find a second line center in free agency. I'm not even so sure you'll find a top four defenseman in free agency. And arguably the team now has that kind of situation locked up with the re-signing of Dylan DeMello yesterday for 4 years. And then, the potential that Dylan Samberg comes into the lineup this coming year and plays in that top four role with Neil Pionk. Now, those things are all speculation because we don't know what's happening. But just looking at some of the players, I wrote an article today listing a couple. Ben Hutton from the LA Kings last year, great driver of offense for the Kings last season on a particularly bad team, and then Eric Gustafsson out of Calgary, who also played for Chicago last year. Not the greatest defensively, but can drive offense, and the Jets don't have a lot of that on their team. He puts up points. He can be used as a power play specialist. So there are options there for them at relatively cheap prices. And then on forward, it depends where they want to go, whether it's Vladdy Nemestikov. He could potentially be your 2C. Probably not, though. Probably not the guy you're looking for. Eric Holla, coming off some injury seasons, but had a great year in Vegas during their inaugural year. And then there's other guys like Kyle Turris, who was bought out by the Nashville Predators, or maybe an Anthony Duclair, who wasn't given a qualifying offer from Ottawa. Dominic Cahoon, no qualifying offer in Buffalo. There's a lot of different guys that are potentially able to be fits for this team. It will depend on price tags and stuff like that. Kevin Cheveldayoff has a lot of cap room to work with, and potentially more depending what happens with Brian Little and maybe even Patrick Laine if he's traded. So, yeah, there's options out there. It remains to be seen kind of how this market works, and we'll kind of start finding out tomorrow morning at 11 a.m.
Yeah, but you sure are not talking there about, I don't think anyway, players that are going to come here and make this team a lot better immediately. I think that if that's the case, if there's just that kind of depth player available and you really do need a number two center, I mean, that's just something they have to have. I don't think anyway that Cole Perfetti is going to be ready to step into that role right away. He's going to be the guy eventually, but yeah, they need a stopgap there, and they're going to have to come up with something. So do you think that if they're getting a second line center, it's going to come through a trade? And is that something that can happen just down the road here because there's no real rush?
Yeah, it'll depend, right? Like if you're going to target a team, let's say you target the Vegas Golden Knights, lots of cap rooms. You could maybe get Paul Stastny. He has 1 year left on his deal. I think it's $6.5 million AAV for that final year. Perhaps you could even get Vegas to eat some of that contract. Probably not, given their cap situation and what they want to do this offseason. But he would be the perfect stopgap in my mind for a guy who would play between Patrick Laine and Nick Ehlers, assuming you keep both of them and don't trade them away.
He's done it before.
And he's done it well before. I mean, there was instant chemistry with those three. Probably in hindsight, the guy that the Jets should have done more to sign, whatever that would have been back then when he was a free agent that summer. But now you might have a shot at getting him relatively cheap, speaking, because, it's not like Vegas and Kelly McCrimmon is going to give him away for free. But
shouldn't be that expensive.
But he shouldn't be that expensive with what they knew, right? And he could be the perfect stopgap if Cole Perfetti is not going to be ready this year, which is likely. He could, if Cole Perfetti is ready for the 21-22 season, and to take that spot. And again, that's still up in the air. But then you can reevaluate. Then you have Paul Stastny for this coming year. He fits in very well. it would be a great addition. He knows the team. There wouldn't be a lot of that, and you wouldn't have to trade Patrick Laine to get one of those players. And if you can then work out a contract with Patrick Laine long term, again, there's a lot of variables there too. But but I think that's part of it, right? Like, what can Kevin Cheveldayoff do to exploit the teams that have cap issues, and what players can he get, like a JT Miller that Vancouver got last year for maybe a draft pick or something along those lines.
So safe to say that they're not going to be taking a run at Alex Pietrangelo or Taylor Hall, and even if they do take that run, they probably aren't going to get them. But one thing that you floated a few times is the idea of an offer sheet, and it's been talked about around the NHL that this is the most likely year for an offer sheet to work. From my understanding of what Kevin Cheveldayoff has said this week, he doesn't believe too highly in how they're going to work or if they're going to be successful. So maybe not, but you like the idea of floating one out there for Anthony Cirelli, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think if you're Kevin Cheveldayoff and you can get Anthony Cirelli to sign that offer sheet, you do it. You make it happen. You make it happen. I would even, I'd be willing at that point to give up the 1, 1, 2, and 3 in terms of picks. But you might be able to get him with a first and a third, and right at that top ceiling. I think it's 6 point something million. I'd have to look back at it, but you might be able to pry him out of there with that kind of offer sheet, and immediately he moves into a top 6 role. Immediately he moves as your second line center. Immediately the Jets have a bona fide Selke candidate who's responsible at both ends of the ice, can produce offense, can do all that stuff. It is an option. I know Chevy said earlier this week that a lot of teams have contingency plans in place for offer sheets. Well, not every team is the Tampa Bay Lightning, who have to still, they're trying to figure out how to get Cirelli signed, Sergachev. They have
it could mean trading Stamkos for them. Well,
to make that happen, right? It puts the pressure on them, right? I mean, they have a certain amount of time to match it. I think it's a week. It puts the pressure on them, and if Chevy really wanted to, and he could make Cirelli an offer in that next tier where it would cost him a couple more picks. But if that's a guy you think that can put your team over the top with the core that you have right now, and the idea is to win now, while Blake Wheeler's still effective, while Mark Scheifele's still here, while Patrick Laine, potentially Nick Ehlers, all those guys, shoot your shot then. I mean, try and make something happen. Like I've said all along, Chevy needs to be aggressive this offseason. He has to kind of don a different persona, because that's not what he's always been. But, that's how you get it done in the NHL. Just look at the Tampa Bay Lightning and what they've done. That's how
it's literally his most, and that's how you do it. And this is literally his most important offseason. No matter what he does here, he's going to be judged quite heavily on it, and he needs to get it right. Anyway, free agency opens on Friday at 11 a.m. Winnipeg time. We will be all over it, and we'll be back to discuss it tomorrow here on Jet Setting. For Scott Billeck, I'm Ted Wyman for the Winnipeg Sun.